Let me ask you a question. Are you broke because you're poor, or are you poor because you're broke in your thinking? You see, the difference between a millionaire and a minimum wage earner isn't education, background, or luck. It's mindset. The millionaire mindset is not something you're born with. It's installed like software. And today we're going to walk through the installation process, not wishy-washy motivation. I'm talking principles that work, spiritual laws, economic laws, and mental frameworks that don't care where you came from. They only care what you believe, speak, and act on. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you are. That's the foundational truth behind the first step in installing the millionaire mindset, upgrading your identity before your income. And if that sounds like theory, let me assure you it's not. It's a law, a spiritual and psychological law. Most people chase external things thinking that if they can just earn more money, move to a better neighborhood, or get more recognition, they'll finally become someone who feels wealthy. But they've got it backwards. Income doesn't precede identity. Identity precedes income. Think about if a poor man wins the lottery, he gets rich temporarily. But if he still sees himself as a poor man, he will sabotage his wealth. Why? Because his identity won't let him live at a level higher than what he believes he's worth. He might not do it consciously. He might blame inflation, bad luck, or the market. But it's not external forces that broke him. It's the mismatch between who he became financially and who he remained internally. His identity refused to rise. His thermostat was set to struggle. You've got to understand that your mind has a financial thermostat, a set point that determines how much money you feel comfortable holding, earning, or growing. Most people think that if they can just grind a little harder, put in more hours, or hustle nonstop, they'll outwork their limitations. But your income can never outrun your identity. It will always find a way to return to the level you believe is normal for you. Until you change that, you'll never experience permanent wealth. You must begin by seeing yourself differently. That means letting go of the version of you that was trained to think small, to settle for survival, to believe that wealth is for other people. That version of you might have come from a home where there was never enough. You might have heard adults arguing over bills, worrying about rent, stressed about whether they could afford the basics. And those patterns didn't just affect your memories, they shaped your self-concept. You began to believe at a subconscious level that wealth was out of reach. That struggle was honorable, and that suffering was just part of life. But that's a lie, a deeply rooted lie that you've got to uproot before you can plant seeds of prosperity. Your creator didn't design you for survival. You were made to thrive. You were given gifts, talents, vision, creativity. And if you can align those gifts with your faith and renew your mind, you'll begin to operate at a higher frequency, not because you're chasing money, but because you're becoming a person that attracts it. The person you want to be, the wealthy, confident, impactful version of you already exists in potential. Your job is not to create that person. Your job is to uncover, unlock, and align with that person. Every time you speak words of life over your future, you're pulling that version of you closer. Every time you act in faith, even when your circumstances don't yet agree, you're upgrading your identity. That's how real transformation happens. Let's go deeper. Most people make decisions based on who they are now. That's a poverty mindset. A millionaire mindset makes decisions based on who they are becoming. For example, when faced with an opportunity, maybe an investment, a coaching program, or a chance to start a business, the broke identity says, I can't afford that, while the millionaire identity asks, how can I afford that? What do I need to shift to make that possible? One shuts down opportunity. The other opens the door to expansion. It's not just about affirmations or hype. It's about acting your way into alignment. Start carrying yourself like a person of value, not arrogance, but assurance. Don't wait for the money to show up before you treat yourself with respect. Dress like you're going somewhere important. Speak like your words matter. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to level up. Read the kind of books that stretch your thinking. Take risks that scare you a little. Do the things your future self would thank you for. And don't be surprised when you feel resistance. Your current identity will fight to survive. It doesn't want to die. That's why you'll feel fear, doubt, even guilt when you start to grow. That's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're breaking through. You're disrupting the patterns that kept you poor. You're shaking up the software in your subconscious. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. When you begin to internalize this, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop playing small. You stop excusing mediocrity, because deep down you know that you were made for more. And once you install that belief and keep feeding it, watering it, and acting on it, your circumstances will have no choice but to adjust to your new identity. You were not designed to be a worker. You were created to be a creator. That's the real foundation of wealth. And yet, the vast majority of people live their entire lives in a system that trains them to trade time for money, to clock in and clock out, to labor for someone else's dream while their own vision dries up in the corners of their imagination. They were given divine gifts, creative power, and the ability to shape worlds with ideas, but they were taught to survive instead of thrive. The millionaire mindset doesn't operate that way. It knows the difference between effort and effectiveness. It knows the difference between labor and leverage. The moment you begin to see yourself as a creator instead of a worker, everything changes. Workers wait for instructions. Creators write the instructions. Workers follow orders. Creators set direction. A worker thinks in tasks. A creator thinks in outcomes. And the wealth you're after doesn't respond to time. It responds to transformation. You get paid in direct proportion to the size of the problem you solve and the value you create, not the number of hours you grind. But when you've been programmed to think like an employee your whole life, it feels almost rebellious to step out of that role. You've been trained to think safety equals security, and that showing up every day for a paycheck is the best you can do. That's not just limiting, it's false. The truth is, the job is never the source. The source is the source. The job is just one of many channels. And when you realize that, you stop worshiping the paycheck and start multiplying your provision. The millionaire mindset sees opportunity in ownership, not in hours. It's constantly asking, what can I build that solves a problem, meets a need, or serves a market? What system can I put in place that works even when I don't? You can't work your way to wealth with labor alone, but you can create your way there with ideas, systems, and impact. It doesn't matter whether you come from poverty, middle class, or struggle. You've got the same 24 hours as everyone else. The difference is how you use those hours. Are you spending them keeping someone else's business alive, or are you investing them building something that outlives you? When you think like a worker, you put a ceiling on your income. You're capped by the clock. There's only so many hours in a day, only so much energy you can give, only so much a boss is willing to pay. But when you think like a creator, you remove the ceiling. You start seeing income as unlimited because value is unlimited. A worker asks, how much does it pay? A creator asks, how much can I impact? A worker thinks paycheck to paycheck. A creator thinks generational legacy. This is not about quitting your job tomorrow. It's about refusing to let your job define your potential. It's about waking up to the fact that you have creative power inside you, and that power is wealth waiting to happen. You are made in the image of a creator. That means creativity is not optional. It's embedded in your DNA, and it's not just about art or music or writing. Creativity is the ability to bring forth something that didn't exist before and turn it into something valuable. That could be a business model, a marketing idea, a consulting strategy, a digital product, a real estate deal. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that you are shifting from consumption to creation. The average person consumes content, entertainment, opinions, gossip, and they stay broke. The person with the millionaire mindset creates solutions, content, strategies, structures, and they get paid. This mindset shift requires intentional reprogramming. Most people were taught to work hard, be humble, keep their heads down, and wait for someone else to determine their worth. But no one can pay you what you're worth. They can only pay you what the role is worth. And when you finally decide to own your value, you stop settling for what a role pays. You start setting your own value in the marketplace. You start building instead of begging, creating instead of chasing, designing instead of drifting. The world doesn't pay for effort. It pays for results. You can be busy all day long and still be broke. The worker mindset worships business. The creator mindset values productivity. Business impresses no one. Results move the needle. When you think like a creator, you start identifying assets where others see liabilities. You see time not as something to pass, but as something to invest. You look at skills not as something to trade for wages, but as seeds you can multiply. You no longer measure your day by how hard you worked, but by how much you created. Did you move something forward? Did you build something that could pay you tomorrow for what you did today? That's the question that drives the millionaire mind. Not did I work enough, but did I create enough? And don't think this is just about business owners or entrepreneurs. You can be a creator in every area of life. Inside a job, inside a family, inside a ministry, inside a movement. The point isn't whether you have a business. The point is whether you have a vision you're building, something that isn't tied to an hourly wage. Something that can scale, something that can outlast you. That's where the real wealth comes from. It comes from creation, from producing, from being fruitful and multiplying, not just in faith, but in finance, in legacy, in results. The minute you realize you were never meant to be a worker, you start walking like someone with authority. You start talking like someone with ownership. You start thinking like someone who's in charge of outcomes, not just tasks. That's the beginning of financial freedom. Money is a tool, not a god. The moment you start worshiping it, it slips through your fingers. The moment you fear it, it controls you. But the moment you respect it, understand its purpose, and learn to master it, it begins to work for you. That's one of the major differences between those who build wealth and those who stay broke. People who operate with the millionaire mindset never chase money just to have more of it. They pursue purpose, impact, and multiplication. They view money as a resource, not a reward, as fuel, not fulfillment. When money becomes the mission, it becomes a cruel master. But when you place it in its rightful place as a servant to your purpose, it becomes a blessing instead of a burden. People with a poverty mindset either idolize money or demonize it. They either say, if I could just have more money, all my problems would be solved. Or they say things like, rich people are greedy and money is evil. Both extremes are rooted in fear, ignorance, and a broken relationship with value. Neither perspective will produce lasting wealth. Money is not moral. It's a magnifier. It only makes you more of what you already are. If you're selfish, money will amplify that. If you're generous, money will amplify that. If you're insecure, money will not heal you. It'll expose you. That's why it's dangerous to pursue money without first doing the heart work. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to have clarity. You need to know what money is and what it isn't so you can position it properly in your life. The wealthy don't see money as the end goal. They see it as a utility. It's a medium of exchange. It's a byproduct of value creation. It flows to those who solve problems, and it flees those who chase it in desperation. If money runs your emotions, it owns your decisions. If you feel anxious when you don't have it and proud when you do, it's got too much power over you. But when you see it as simply a tool to build, grow, and serve, you gain control. Respecting money means understanding how it works. It means studying the flow of cash, learning to manage it, and refusing to let it intimidate you. The same way a builder learns to handle a hammer, a wealthy person learns to handle a dollar. You learn its laws, its principles, its tendencies. You study it not because you worship it, but because you plan to use it wisely. People who respect money don't waste it. They don't throw it at liabilities and then cry about being broke. They don't live to impress people. They live to build legacy. They don't buy things to prove their worth. They invest to multiply their value. Every dollar they earn has an assignment. Every cent has a purpose. There's intention behind their spending. They tithe. They give. They invest. They steward. Because they understand that money must be managed to grow. It must be honored to multiply. Money disrespected disappears. Money respected multiplies. One of the clearest signs that someone doesn't respect money is that they fear it. They don't understand it, so they avoid it. They don't talk about it. They don't plan for it. They avoid their bank statements. They ignore debt. They hope things will just work out. But that's not respect. That's avoidance. Respecting money means you confront it head on. You ask the hard questions. You learn how to make it, keep it, grow it, and use it. You develop discipline. You budget. You calculate. You forecast. Not because you're obsessed, but because you're an authority. Respect means stewardship. You can't manage what you're afraid to look at. You can't multiply what you refuse to understand. On the other hand, worship and money is just as dangerous. Some people become addicted to the feeling of accumulation. They think their value rises with their net worth. They begin to serve money instead of using money to serve their purpose. Their decisions are controlled by the fear of losing what they have. They become stingy, anxious, overprotective. Their self-worth gets tangled up in their bank balance. They may look rich on the outside, but they're spiritually and emotionally bankrupt because money was never meant to sit on the throne. It's not worthy of your worship. It's not your identity. It's not your source. When you respect money, you don't need to hoard it or flaunt it. You know it comes from a higher source, and you know it has a job to do. You don't serve it, it serves you. The millionaire mindset keeps money in its proper place. It doesn't shy away from wealth. It doesn't apologize for abundance. It understands that wealth, when stewarded with integrity, can fund visions, change lives, and advance kingdom impact. But it also understands that money is not the goal. Transformation is, service is, legacy is. You don't chase the dollar, you chase the calling. And when your purpose aligns with your principles, the money flows. Not because you're lucky, but because you're in alignment. Because money is attracted to order, discipline, and value, and repelled by chaos, desperation, and waste. Respecting money also means being grateful for it. Gratitude activates stewardship. When you're thankful, you take care of what you have, you maximize it. You don't despise small beginnings. You don't say it's just $10. You say, this is seed. You understand that what you do with little determines what you'll be trusted with later. That's not just financial law, that's spiritual law. You've got to treat every level of provision like it matters. Because it does. You don't need millions to start practicing the millionaire mindset. You start where you are with what you have, doing what you can. Because when you respect money, it begins to respond differently to you. It starts to find you. It begins to flow through you. It begins to grow under your stewardship, not because money is magic, but because your mindset is shifted. Success is not an accident. Wealth doesn't show up uninvited. The people who build lasting financial success do so intentionally, by design, not by default. One of the core principles of the millionaire mindset is the power of decision, decisive, committed, non-negotiable action toward a clearly defined goal. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they never made a real decision. They treat wealth like a wish instead of a choice. They say things like, I hope one day, or it would be nice if, but never cross the line from interest to commitment. Until you decide that wealth is your portion and you're willing to do what it takes with integrity and discipline, your results will reflect hesitation, not conviction. The decision to become wealthy is not made in the bank account. It's made in the mind. It happens when you stop treating money as optional and start treating mastery as essential. A true decision cuts off all other options. It says, this is who I am now, not someday, not eventually, not after the conditions are perfect. A real decision doesn't wait for the environment to cooperate. It commands the environment to shift. It's not passive, it's powerful. When someone has made a true decision, you can hear it in their voice, you can see it in their schedule, and you can feel it in their discipline. Their time, attention, and energy begin to align with the outcome they've chosen, not the circumstances they're in. But most people don't make decisions. They make suggestions. They make temporary commitments. They start with enthusiasm and quit with excuses. That's not how wealth is built. Wealth requires consistency. Not just hustle, but alignment. Not just movement, but momentum. And that momentum comes from being anchored in a decision that you refuse to back away from. That's why you can't afford to make decisions based on emotion. Emotions fluctuate, but decisions direct. If you only do what feels good, you'll never do what's necessary. The millionaire mindset doesn't chase comfort. It chooses growth. Growth requires pressure. It demands discipline. It requires that you show up even when you're tired, unsure, or afraid. Because when the decision is real, quitting is no longer an option. People often say they want to be successful, but they're not willing to give up the habits that keep them struggling. They want wealth, but they don't want to release their addiction to distraction, entertainment, or validation. You cannot become someone new while clinging to the identity of your former self. There's a price to pay for wealth, and the price is not just money. It's the old mindset. It's the comfort zone. It's the stories you've told yourself about why you can't win. The millionaire mindset makes peace with the fact that sacrifice is not punishment, it's preparation. Every time you let go of a limiting belief, a bad habit, or a toxic influence, you're clearing the path for greater impact and increase. A real decision isn't made once, it's made daily. Every time you choose to invest instead of waste, you're reinforcing the decision. Every time you learn instead of scroll, act instead of hesitate, speak faith instead of fear, you are proving that the decision wasn't emotional, it was foundational. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. It's about refusing to be moved by the ups and downs. It's about anchoring your identity to your vision, not your conditions. That's how people build wealth in spite of adversity. That's how people rise above limitations. Not because it's easy, but because the decision is deeper than the distractions. Making a decision also means you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop giving your past the authority to dictate your future. You stop outsourcing your power to people who don't share your vision. You stop waiting for support from people who were never called to build what you're building. Decision breeds focus, and focus creates clarity. When you know what you're after, you stop wasting time on things that don't serve your purpose. You stop saying yes to distractions that look good but lead nowhere. Your yes becomes more powerful because your no becomes more disciplined. The people who build wealth don't stumble into it. They step into it with intention. They don't just react to life. They design it. They don't hope something will change, they create the change. And they do it over and over again because the decision is not conditional, it's permanent. That decision drives how they think, how they speak, how they move. They are not confused about their destination, so they don't get detoured by temporary discomfort. The millionaire mindset embraces the process, knowing that process is what produces power. They don't try to skip steps. They understand that every season of discipline is producing something for the next level. You must understand that wealth doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to clarity, conviction, and courage. That's why decision is not just about saying yes. It's about saying no to everything that doesn't align. You can't become unstoppable while still entertaining distractions. You can't claim the results of the committed while operating with the habits of the inconsistent. The decision to live in abundance is not just a financial decision. It's a personal one. It's a spiritual one. It's an identity decision. Who are you willing to become? What are you willing to release? What are you refusing to tolerate? These are the questions that shape destiny. These are the questions that the millionaire mind answers with boldness. Once the decision is made, the direction becomes clear. And when the direction is clear, the actions become aligned. And when the actions are aligned, the results are inevitable. You don't chase success, you attract it by becoming a match for it. That's what decision does. It transforms you from the inside out. It removes the gaps between your potential and your performance. It makes you magnetic to opportunity, not because you're lucky, but because you're locked in, because your mind is made up, because your actions speak louder than your intentions, because your vision became non-negotiable. The most powerful asset you will ever have is not your money.